Well, welcome to another Sonic Lab. This is a kind of preview of the brand new Roland Boutique Designer SE-02, which is the result of a collaboration between Studio Electronics, who've made decent analog systems for quite some time now, 20 years I think, possibly more. You may remember I've reviewed their Boom Stars and some of the other modules, and they sound really good. There's something about the core oscillators and the core filters just sound really remarkable. And this is a collaboration between the two of those. Now, you probably know that the boutiques, wait a minute, aren't boutiques ACB, analog circuit behavior? These are the models that have come out in the past, the JP08, the JU06, which is the 106 clone, and the JX0P, I think is what it was called, plus various other boutique things. And these were all digitally modelled sort of Roland greatest hits. So this is the first time that we're seeing actual analog in the boutique format. And, you know, it's a real testament to the design skills of Studio Electronics, who've managed to get this much stuff into such a tiny little box. So the SE-02 is in fact a 3 oscillator analog mono synth. It's got 3 VCOs, VCA and VCF, and I use those terms in the traditional sense. They are voltage controlled, they are the analog part of it. The additional parts are the fact that it's got memories. I think there are 384 or possibly more memories in here where you can store all of the front panel settings. So these are sort of digital controls of the analog electronics, but they are analog electronics. There's also a step sequencer in here which allows you to record a parameter per step as well if you want. We'll look at that a bit later. This video is really more of a kind of preview, so I wanted to show you how the whole thing shaped up. And the first thing I will say, it's boutique. Now, the problem I've had with boutiques in the past is they're really tiny, and if you've got a lot of controls on there, it's actually quite fiddly to get around it. And I'm afraid the boutique SE-02 is no different. I mean, it sounds absolutely wonderful. I have to say, the analog electronics, they've really kind of nailed, you know, that kind of Studio Electronics oscillator sound, which does sound very good. It is very similar in concept to the Mini Moog. It's not trying to be a Mini Moog clone. We've got 3 analog oscillators. We've got a VCA mixer, which allows you to gain stage into the analog filter. And the analog filter is a 24 dB 4-pole low-pass filter, very much in the kind of style of the Moog ladder filter. But if we look here, if I drop that and bring the level up, sounds very nice. Then I bring the resonance up, and you can hear a lot of bottom end drops. It's a great sounding filter and oscillators, I have to say. So it doesn't have gain compensation, which is what some more modern analog synthesizers do, where as the resonance comes in and the low end tips off, it kind of automatically compensates. This doesn't do that, but that means it's much more traditionally sort of like a Mini Moog filter, and it will scream as well. Back to the front panel. 2 envelopes, one is mapped to the filter, one is to the amplitude. They're attack, decay, sustain envelopes, but you can switch them via this little switch here to be like that, or you can switch the decay portion to be a release portion, or just have it on envelope 2. So they are kind of flexible, but they're not full ADSR controls. And then we've got a single LFO plus a digital delay, which is also kind of nice, can be clocked to external type stuff. I will say, you know, if we're talking about build quality and all those things, you know, it is quite fiddly. You know, there is definitely a kind of, you do have to peer at it a little bit because it is quite tiny. My hands are small, but you can see how small the knobs are. I do prefer the knobs to faders though, because you get much more travel in them and you can find the sweet spot a lot easier. One other thing I should add is if you can't really see the top of the knob that well, it would be nice if that was just a slightly bit bigger and brighter, because it's actually quite difficult to make out where the position of the knob is. You have to kind of look at it a bit clearer. If we come back to the main panel as well, I'll switch it up here. I've got this inside the case that you can get with it, which allows you to sort of stand the whole thing up. If I come back to this shot here, so you're allowed to, you can flip it up, and I'll keep it flat for the purposes of this review. And if we come back to see the connections, we've also got volume on the back on mini key, on a mini pot, Kensington lock, headphone output, not a dedicated volume on it, mono output on mini jack, external input on mini jack. Then we've got inputs for CV, gate and VCF's CV, so we can control this via external modular gear. Then we've got a trigger out and a trigger in for running the sequencer. MIDI in and out, nice to see. Power or USB on a micro USB, we can see that there. That will actually also, this functions as an audio interface, so we should be able to plug this into stuff like the Roland mixer, which takes USB signals into it as well. Finally, we've got the power supply and power switch. Does need to be run on external power, and it's also got this tiny little speaker as well, which is kind of useful, I suppose, in some ways, although to be fair you can't run it on battery, so I'm not entirely sure why you would need that. I suppose it means if you just want to check something without plugging it into your mixer, you can. So before I get into doing a few presets, just a bit of information about the MIDI side of things. You've got a MIDI I/O, and also MIDI comes in via USB. Front panel controls are all MIDI CC compatible, so you can automate this via your DAW or via another controller. You can also route aftertouch to stuff like the filter and mod depth, and when you're playing, the only thing I did notice is it's not possible from the front panel to select filter depth, but if you go into this mode here, you can have contour effect depth. So if I turn that right up and take the contour here, it means that I can let's just turn that right. I can get envelope depth for the filter, which gives you that nice sort of twangy vibe, but there's no VCA velocity on this, which is something I was a bit surprised not to see, but there you go, that's one of the limitations. Anyway, let's get on to some patches. Classic sync sounds are also possible. And the envelope can be multi-trigger or legato trigger. Tune all the oscillators to different pitches. I'm modulating the pitch by an interval. Here I'm modulating the filter with oscillator 2. Adding a little extra feedback. Has plenty of bottom end, that's for sure. In fact, using the feedback control here, you can get some really outrageous drive. Again, using the filter, and I'm clocking the envelope from the LFO, which you can also do, so you can create these nice sort of trigger, almost sort of sequency type things without actually using the sequencer. This is just a sort of crazy self-generative patch. Not quite sure what's going on here, but it's doing its own thing. Here I'm using the sync to create quite a harmonically rich sound. Again, using the delay. bring the feedback up, and you get some amazing low harmonics to take the delay out. Very rich sounding tones. Here again, I'm exploring the edge of feedback. But the bottom end and the sort of richness of the raw oscillators really comes through in these kind of patches. This is just a simple bass tone. It's just a single oscillator. Another one slightly detuned. Yeah, this sort of monstrous bottom end is what this is all about. Extreme use of portamento here. And you might notice you've also got the ability to set the glide control to be linear or exponential. So you can get two different kinds, a sort of more System 55 or more of a mini type slope to the glide. Obviously there's a wub. Everybody needs some wub in their life. Probably get the bottom end coming through there. One of the more sort of random generative patches. Again, using the LFO to trigger. The envelopes. Kind of kick snare, I guess. So this one, just playing the filter via the keyboard, adding some oscillator 2 cross mod to the field, and the delay in full effect there again. So I hope that's given you a flavour of the Roland Boutique Designer SE-02 in conjunction with Studio Electronics. I hope that's given you a sort of idea of what there is to come. The full review will be forthcoming. Don't forget to subscribe and then you'll be notified as soon as we upload. That's it. Thanks for watching. See you next time.